Welcome back everyone, we Weeb online and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Became the Western Emperor Part 6. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Mei was not doing well after Kekuzu hit her directly. She coughed up some blood. Kiri did their best to defend their village. But it wasn't enough when they faced two S-rank ninja leading about 12,000 shinobi, zetsus, and mercenaries. Not only that, but most Odo soldiers also had some kind of implant in their bodies and used cursed marks, even though most of them were crazy. It didn't matter because all they wanted to do was kill. Even worse, Odo was able to hire pirates and about 30 ships to steal from and help the navy. Only a small number of Kiri's troops were still alive. When Mei looked up, she saw that 6 of her 7 swordsmen were asleep. Hidden was to blame for Ao's heavy bleeding. He was her right-hand man. Suijutsu washed away the seal and attacked him, which was the only thing that saved him. Hidden couldn't get blood from Suijutsu because he was a fish, but this didn't put him at a disadvantage. Instead, he kept hacking at Suigetsu, hoping to get his blood as a side effect. This made Suijutsu have to act defensively. Chijuro was having trouble breathing because he had used up all of his chakra fighting off so many cursed seal shinobi who used the second level even if it meant losing their minds. Kakuzu laughed as he lifted Mei up slowly with his tentacles and choked her to death. Since you have 2 bloodlines, I've always been curious to see how your heart works for me, even though your mind and body will die. You have nothing to worry about. You'll live on inside me. Any last words? Teased Kakuzu. Mei could only gag and choke as she tried in vain to break free of the tentacle and get air into her lungs, her legs dangling helplessly. Ao tried to stop him, but he fell because he was losing blood and going to sleep slowly. Chijuro couldn't move at all because he had used up all of his chakra. And Suijutsu was busy fighting Hidden. I thought so, Kakuzu said as a tentacle got ready to go through her body and pierce her heart. Mei slowly shut her eyes as her vision began to blur. She still wanted to make her dreams come true. Being Mizukage was just the first step toward reaching that goal. She wanted to find her true love, get married, and have her own children. Children who could grow up in a safe village without too much trouble. As her vision was getting worse, she swore she could hear angels' wings beating down from the sky to lead her to the afterlife. She thought she heard something thwump, but she wasn't sure what it was. She opened her eyes just a little and saw that Kakuzu wasn't looking at her anymore. Instead, he was trying to figure out where that strange noise was coming from. Just like she was. Her vision was still getting worse quickly because she wasn't getting enough oxygen. But she could tell Kakuzu was confused. She wasn't the only one who heard it. It seems it was heard by everyone. Thwump, 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 thrup. As the noise got louder, a voice said, "There's a lady." Kakuzu quickly used one of his justice to make his skin so dense that they were almost as hard as diamond. Daten, Damu, call me, the voice yelled. All of a sudden, a familiar black leg kicked Kakuzu away from Mei. Kakuzu was knocked back a few feet and hit a wall. Mei was finally able to breathe when her rescuer dropped her down into his arms. As her sight slowly came back and her lungs gasped for air, she saw that the man was very familiar. He had a curly brow, blonde hair, a suit, and a cigarette. It was Sanji. The man who had been so forward with her had saved her. "Are you all right, mademoiselle?" asked Sanji, as he gently put her against the wall to rest. Mei could only nod. Kakuzu slowly stood up and yelled, "Who the hell are you?" Even though his skin was as hard as a diamond, he felt the kick. Sanji took a slow drag on his cigarette and then let it out slowly before answering. "The hunter, the man who is going to find you because you hurt a woman." "Ah, you're that cook," Hidden said as he cut Suijutsu with no care. "You're stupid to come here by yourself to save a damsel who is about to die. First, don't make fun of chivalry. Second, who said I came alone?" Suddenly, cannon fires could be heard, and holes could be seen in the ships that were attacking Kiri. A strangely brightly colored ship with a sun on its front led the charge. 2 other ships were following it side by side. The sails on one were black, and the sails on the other were strangely shimmering. Read Thousand Sunny, Black Pearl, and Flying Dutchman on the names. There were about 5 other ships behind it. "But you're still out," started Suijutsu when they all saw the main ship Thousand Sunny open its figurehead so a cannon could pop out. When the corsairs saw it, they turned their ships around to get away from it. But it was already too late. Gaon-hu, when it was fired, the huge air pressure cannon was much bigger than all of Odo's windpipes, which were built into the arms of some of the shinobi. It instantly destroyed 2/3 of the enemy fleet. It was like comparing a slingshot to a bazooka in terms of weapons. When the corsairs saw this path of destruction and how many ships were still alive, they tried to get away right away. Then, the Imperial West Fleet split into two groups. The Flying Dutchman and the Black Pearl went after two other ships, and the rest of the crew went with the Thousand Sunny to help Kiri on land. When Thousand Sunny got to land, there were sounds of turning. A big robot came out from inside the ship a few seconds later. Behold, Franky Shogun. A voice inside the robot yelled as the robot held its arms high in the air in a pose. Everyone from the east stopped for a moment to watch. All of the male soldiers on the battlefield yelled, "So cool." Most of the women did nothing but stare. Kakuzu was drooling and his eyes were shining with yellow sparkles when he saw this. He liked big robots so much that he named all of his attacks after them. He quickly got over it. He then saw Monkey D. Luffy coming toward him. All of the West didn't seem to follow his orders, so he thought that man was the most important general. All units, attack and slow down the Western forces until I finish off the Mizukage. I'll pay 100 million ryos to whoever brings me the head of their general. Almost all of the Odo forces rushed toward him at this point. It was fun to kill, but greed was another big reason. Mei yelled, "No." She tried to tell her troops to protect him, but Sanji stopped her by raising his hand. "Don't worry about him. There's a reason he's the fleet admiral and our emperor's personal rival," said Sanji. On the battlefield, Odo had surrounded Luffy and were all charging at him. "I'll take his head." "No, I own it. This is mine." They were getting closer. 50 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet. A pulse of invisible energy seemed to come from Luffy all of a sudden. A few seconds later, almost all of the people who tried to kill Luffy immediately passed out. White bubbles coming out of their mouths. Not even those on level 2 with cursed seals were awake. Only about 1,000 of the invaders were still awake at most. Did he just kill the enemy with a look? Suigetsu asked. Since he wasn't paying attention, Hidden cut him. But as usual, no blood came out. "That's my captain for you," Sanji said as he began to spin quickly. When he stopped spinning, no one could figure out why he was doing what he was doing. His right leg all of a sudden started to glow hot red. Diable jam, Kakuzu said. "HMPH, you think a little special effect will help? Your kick barely hurt me before." Sanji hit Kakuzu in the face with a kick, sending him up into the air. Even with his earth spear on, he was so surprised that the kick hurt that it burned, even though the attack didn't leave bruises on his skin. It burned so badly that he felt like he had just been cooked. When he looked up, Sanji was already spinning around him and giving him red-hot kicks. "Shoot the venison." After what seemed like the 30th kick, Sanji finished with an axe kick, which sent Kakuzu flying away from Mei and into the battlefield, where he landed on top of many unconscious invaders. Sanji landed back where Mei and the others were on the ground. He walked slowly while drawing on his cigarette. He looked so cool that he made Mei blush, and Ao looked very envious, until Sanji changed his mind about how he felt. "Mei Swan, did you fall in love with me?" Melorine, said Sanji as he danced with his arms moving like waves and eyes that were filled with hearts. Everyone in the room who was still fighting in the deathmatch dropped their sweat at this attitude. Mei, on the other hand, thought it was funny and that this knight in shining armor should be rewarded. She walked up to him slowly and gave him a kiss on the lips. Before Mei finally broke the kiss, a lot of time had passed. Chijuro was crying in the background because his idol had been taken. "Yes, Sanji-kun. Yes, I did," said Mei sultry. Sanji was knocked out cold when he got a nosebleed so strong that it threw him against a wall. Hidden started to sweat, but he still tried to get Sanji's blood to hurt him. Suigetsu washed the blood off quickly and then drank some more water and a soldier pill, while Mei was trying to stop bleeding. Al also gave him a soldier pill. Mei yelled, "Hidden, you are outnumbered. Give up now." When he was suddenly stuck in a bubble, Hidden just laughed crazily and tried to slash at Mei. No matter how hard he cut, the bubble held. "Your turn is over now." They looked to see if Utataka and Yagura were coming in, when Utakata started to make the bubble rise up into the air right above them. Hidden started to fight even harder, before Yagura gathered a lot of chakra in front of his mouth. He changed into his three-tailed beast chakra form. He pointed it up, making the chakra ball in front of him grow bigger. Yagura yelled as he fired his Biju ball. "I may not have been a good cage, but I was still the Yonde Mizukage. And I swear on that name that I will beat you." "Oh, fuck, Jashin will," Hidden started to say. But he was killed before he could finish. Kakuzu slowly opened his eyes so he could see how badly he had been hurt. He was still alive, but when that stupid cook attacked him, he lost his mask. He saw Hidden get blown away by the explosion, and Luffy and his crew were slowly making their way toward him. The people who were still alive after Luffy's blast tried to attack, but they were quickly put down. Kakuzu quickly let out his chakra, and the masks on his face turned into different people. Then he realized that everyone around him was wearing blue uniforms and that Cloud, Zack, and Sephiroth were in charge. Kakuzu snarled and started making hand gestures. Zack and Cloud stepped in and cut in half 2 of the masks. Sephiroth, on the other hand, sat in the back and let his 2 commanders do the work. He didn't have to use his power yet. Kakuzu grunted because he was down to just 2 masks. He wanted to collect chakra. But Cloud and Zack wouldn't let him. Cloud, Zack called out. Cloud jumped up and said, "Got it." Zack swung the sword by using the flat side. Cloud landed on the sword and was thrown right at Kakuzu. Cloud swung his sword hard, cutting off the heads of both masks. Kakuzu was now in his final life. Corsairs bombed the hell out of them. Some of the ships that weren't attacked turned their cannons on Cloud and Zack. They heard a laugh before they could shoot. Ha ha ha. It's time to eat. When they looked up, they saw Kasama riding a big wave that hit the ship. Kasama jumped on the ship and used his greatsword to cut up his enemies. Worse, white sharks were swimming around the ship he was on, so any pirates who tried to jump ship were eaten. SHT. I should have known Kasama was still alive if Itachi was still alive. I need to find a way to tell Pain, Kakuzu muttered. Zack swung his sword up in an arc, sending Kakuzu flying. Zack and Cloud both started swinging their swords in a circle and said, "This is over now." They both let go and the ball went up. The swords broke apart all around him into many different kinds of swords. Kakuzu looked around with a look on his face that hadn't been there for a long time. Fear. Cloud and Zack became what looked like streams of light around their bodies all of a sudden. They each grabbed one of the many swords in the air and slashed Kakuzu as they flew right past him. Every time, they both cut across Kakuzu in the air, crossing each other. Kakuzu couldn't even defend himself. After so many slashes, Zack and Cloud's last one came from below and above, respectively, before he blew up into pieces. The last slash cut him into thirds. Kakuzu was dead. Captain Jack Sparrow wasn't enjoying himself. The rum in his bottle was gone. Using his magical compass, he found more inside the enemy ship they were boarding. After winning a few sword fights, he slowly made his way up to the deck, where more fighting was happening. He drank some rum, then grabbed a rope and swung himself onto another ship. It was too bad that their crew hadn't been there yet. He looked up as he landed and saw that the Corsairs were looking at him. As Jack tried to swing back, he said, "Excuse me, but I'm on the wrong ship. I must have made a mistake." His way out was blocked, since everyone was slowly moving toward him. He did the only thing he could. He drank some of his rum and then ran away. Jack yelled "WAAA" as he ducked and blocked his enemies' blades. He used anything he could find to keep them from going. Because of him, cannons were moved out of place. After chasing for 10 minutes, the Corsairs were very tired. They ran up some stairs and finally cornered him when they saw something that made them sick to their stomachs. They were now being shot at by 2 cannons, and Jack was lighting both of them up. He took another sip of his rum while ropes were tied around his body and to one of the cannons. "You're mad," said a Corsair in disbelief. "Thank God for that, because if I wasn't, this would never work," said Jack. One of the cannons hit the Corsair's ship's main mast, while the other was aimed at the main deck. The cannon pulled back, pulling the rope with it. Jack was thrown up into the air right away. Jack yelled, "Whoa!" as he took off into the air. He landed right next to Captain Will Turner on the Flying Dutchman because he was very careful. Jack said to himself as he took another sip of his rum, "Did anyone see that? Because I'm not going to do that again." "Even so, you seem to do it every time," said Captain Will Turner with a laugh. "Shut up," said Jack. "Just get me back to my ship. This fight is over, and I need a long drink with my rum." After a day, Kiri attacked the land of spring at night. We haven't heard anything about the failure yet. Abido Uchiha, also known as Tobai, grinned as he sneaked into Koyuki's palace. If you could walk through walls, it was easy to get past any defense. Soon, he was in her room, where she appeared to be sleeping alone. He was with 20 Odo shinobi who had cursed seals. If he needed a distraction, he could use them. Baka Kakashi must be outside doing his job. Too bad he'll find out he failed again when he gets back, just like he did with Rin. Abido thought as he slowly reached for Koyuki's neck. He could picture her face as she slowly died, and he knew that the last thing she would hear was that Kakashi was to blame for her death. His hand kept coming closer and closer until it was almost on her neck. He could either suffocate her or just break her neck. "You shouldn't do that at all." Abido threw a kunai at the voice because it surprised him. A shadow came out of nowhere and caught the kunai with ease. Soon, the cloud moved out of the way so the moon could be seen. Kakashi came out of the shadow, still wearing his headband over his left eye. Kakashi said, "She's had a long day and needs to rest." Before Abido could do anything, Kakashi was already on him with his hand on his mask. He tossed Abido out of the window and onto the grounds of the castle to clear his mind and look around. Tobai shook his head. He was surprised to see that the people around him were not demons. Yusuke, Hiei, Inuyasha, Sesshomaru, Koga, Riku Onura, and Sararo Oikawa had surrounded him. Koga, dressed like a wolf, had a long braid of black hair and acted like a wolf. Riku wore a black kimono with a blue cloak. His hair was white, but there were black streaks in it. Sarara's hair was light blue on top and black in the back. She wore a scarf with her kimono. Abido tried to keep up his act by saying, Tobai was surprised. Tobai doesn't like how this looks, but you won't be able to catch Tobai now. He tried to run and phase past them, but Yusuke hit him in the stomach with his fist, stopping him in his tracks. Yusuke hit him back into the middle with a punch. How? Abido coughed. Koga laughed. Don't think you're invincible just because you can teleport parts of yourself to another dimension. When Kakashi grabbed you, he also put a seal on you that makes you stay in this dimension. Thanks to the Uzumaki clan. Abido glared and growled at them. Kakashi landed in front of them all out of the blue. Kakashi growled, "Leave him to me. We have a score to settle. Especially since he tried to kill my wife." Abido let out a loud whistle. The 20 Odo shinobi all of a sudden tried to kill them. The demon brigade was too strong for them, as Abido and Kakashi went around each other. Abido tried to play it off with his fake personality. You've put Tobai in a bad situation, and he doesn't know what to do. Shut up, Kakashi yelled. I know who you are. You say you're Madara Uchiha, but the West Spy Network and Itachi say you're not him. When your true identity was revealed to me, I couldn't believe it, but now I know I must if I want to protect the people I love. Abido was shocked to find out that someone had stolen his identity, but he kept his cool. He still had his Mangekyo Sharingan on his right eye, and he had a backup Sharingan on his left eye for Izanagi. He decided to take off the mask because there was no longer any reason to hide who he was. He put a patch over his left eye, though, to hide the fact that he had stolen a Sharingan. So, you finally figured out that I was alive, Abido said as he stopped being his fake self for good. It was shocking to find out that someone I thought of as a friend wanted to kill Sensei's son. And it was even scarier to learn that you helped kill Sensei, his wife, and even the Uchiha clan, said Kakashi. How could you do that to Minato Sensei? He was her guardian and teacher, Abido yelled. And whose fault was that? You couldn't protect Rin. Kakashi didn't say anything after hearing that. Abido thought that the silence meant that he was going to be scolded again. You can't do anything, right, Kakashi? You killed Rin. I saw it with my own eyes. That's why this world can't exist. I won't live in a world where Rin isn't alive. You should have been the one to die. I will right this wrong and make a world where Rin is alive and in my arms. I don't care who gets in my way. Abido stopped Kakashi when he tried to explain. I know you didn't do it on purpose. She jumped into your attack while you were trying to protect her, but that doesn't change the fact that you didn't protect her. You broke your promise. Abido picked up a sword and threw it at Kakashi. Abido said, if you're really sorry you couldn't protect Rin, take your own life. Make up for it with your death. Kakashi took the sword slowly. When Kakashi threw it back at him, Abido laughed like he was crazy. Abido teased Kakashi. What is this? Are you so afraid of dying and meeting everyone to tell them about your failures? Kakashi just shook his head and said, it's true. I couldn't protect Rin. I didn't do a good job trying to help Sensei's son, even though you were the reason he became an orphan. When Naruto was banished, I was lost on the road to life. I took out the Sharingan you gave me and destroyed it, and I traveled the lands to find him. I had to teach myself how to fight without my Sharingan, Abido asked sarcastically. And that's it, Kakashi said. To protect the people I care about and never let anything bad happen to them, especially Koyuki and my unborn child. And you think that will make all the people you hurt forgive you? Yelled Abido. It's a start, and I think it's a good one, Kakashi said. When you think of Rin, does she smile at you? He asked Abido. Abido charged at him with a roar instead of talking back. Even without the Sharingan, Kakashi showed that he was a stronger opponent than Abido. After a few minutes of fighting, Kakashi made some space between himself and Abido by ducking a punch and putting his foot into Abido's stomach. Abido closed his eye for a few seconds while they both took deep breaths. In his mind, he could see Rin, the girl he loved, but she was still making a face at him. Abido decided to ask, tell me, Kakashi, if Rin isn't smiling at me, is she smiling at you? He asked in a teasing way. Kakashi just shut his eyes for a moment. He said, no, this goes beyond that. When I gave them my answer, they all smiled at me and walked away. I tried to follow them, but they waved at me and told me that it was enough and that I should let it go. I don't even see them in my dreams anymore, but I know that one smile from them was enough. That smile told me that I should move on with my life and that they had forgiven me. Liar, yelled Abido. If Rin isn't smiling at you, it should be mine. Again, Abido charged in. As he kept blocking Abido's attacks, Kakashi sighed and thought, this is how far you've fallen, Obito, that you can't get over the past and see what's really going on. Rin gave her life for the sake of the village. I did not want to kill her at all. Before she died, she tried to mouth something to me. But I was so scared that I couldn't see or hear it. I could only see her swearing at me. But I remember now, her last words. It said, sorry, Kakashi, for making you do this. Don't blame yourself. Now, my ex-friend is threatening to kill my family, including Naruto. I'll never fail again, even if it means killing my best friend all over again. At this, Kakashi kicked Obito away and pulled up the headband to show that his eye was closed. Obito made fun of him, asking, what are you doing, Baka Kakashi? Yes, I got rid of it, said Kakashi, but since I have contacts with the West and the Emperor of the West is actually Minato's son, Sensei's, I got something interesting to replace it. Obito went still at that. He knew that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was in the West, but he had no idea that he was the Emperor. He began to think about how to build his Sharingan. If he could control the Kyuubi with his eyes, it would be easy for him to control the Emperor. With that much power, they could help him finish his plans. He didn't even notice or care that it was the son of his teacher. When Kakashi finally opened his left eye, he said, I can see that you don't even care that our sensei's son is still alive. All I see on your face is pure greed for how to get him. It was not the same eye. Its iris was violet, which was very different from his own eyes. Before it started to glow, it looked like a normal eye. HMPH, said Hiei. Looks like he used it after all. The Odo Shinobi tried to use this to his advantage, but he was cut up before he realized he was dead. Obito was shocked as he looked at it. It seemed to look right into his heart. It's a modification of the original, but it's still the Jagan Eye, Kakashi said. To be honest, it's much better than the Sharingan. Even in its modified form, the original is much more powerful. But I couldn't handle it. Instead, it gives me some of the same abilities as a 3-Tomo Sharingan. My perception is heightened. Jinjutsu doesn't work against me. And best of all, I have remote vision. Obito could only be angry about this. Kakashi really gave up his eye to get something better. Kakashi said, but the best thing is that I can watch my wife take a shower while I walk around the castle. Everyone fell flat on their faces at this. Kakashi did, in fact, have a secret sexual life. Hiei yelled, damn it, Kakashi. I didn't let you get one so you could spy on people. In secret, he had done that, but it was an accident. Jiraiya also wanted one, but no one would let him have one. Kakashi just smiled and said, that's true, but the pain I had to go through was awful. I can't even imagine how bad it would have been if I had gone through with the original procedure instead. I probably wouldn't have made it. Kakashi, just die. Obito yelled as he fired wooden poles at Kakashi. Kakashi would die if one of them stabbed him. Each one was easy for Kakashi to avoid. But when Obito tried to stab him, they were face to face. He easily blocked it, then grabbed a kunai, put a lightning chakra charge on it, and stabbed Obito. Even with his Sharingan, Obito just barely avoided it. Kakashi let go of his kunai and kicked it straight toward his chest as soon as he did. It would have killed Obito if he hadn't used his fake hand to block it. Obito yelled, is that all you've got? Fine, Kakashi said. You asked for it. He quickly went through the hand signs for his original attack, CA, and at the end, the famous Raikiri in his hand came to life. But soon, the Rasengan appeared right above it. Slowly, the electricity went into the spiraling ball, and soon a Rasengan with a lighting pattern was made. Kakashi finally did what Minato couldn't do and merged elemental composition into the racing. He kept trying different things for 5 long years before he finally got it. Rasen Kiri. In Kakashi's right hand was a spiral ball full of blue lightning that could kill. With a loud roar, Kakashi rushed forward faster than Obito thought he could do. It's been 7 years. Kakashi had trained as hard as he could for 7 years so that when he found Naruto, he could protect him like his father had done for him. But Naruto didn't need protection, but Koyuki, his wife, did. Kakashi pierced Obito's chest with all of his training. As the attack hit home, Obito coughed up blood. Because of the seal, he couldn't phase through it. And he couldn't dodge it because it was moving too fast. Before the ball exploded, it sent him flying away, like the Rasen Shuriken. It grew bigger, but not as much as the Rasen Shuriken. But it was there that the difference became clear. While the Rasen Shuriken attacked the body like needles stabbing each cell, this attack cut through the cells and overloaded each one with electricity, causing them to stop working and sometimes explode. Shit, if I don't use it, I will die. Izanagi, Obito thought. Before everyone, He faded into a faint image and then reappeared on the roofs. Scene 2 was at first planned for Kakashi, so same scene, but a different move. Kakashi was surrounded right away by a black, fiery aura. Kakashi used Reikiri, a well-known jutsu, on his right hand. The black aura shrunk all the way down to his right hand, and the blue lightning turned into jet black. It looked like fire and lightning at the same time. This fire, which has nothing to do with Amaterasu, is black flames called up from the depths of the demon world. They are so powerful that they will burn everything in their path. If Itachi's flame came from the heavens, this one comes from hell, Kakashi said as he began his technique. Jiao Rain Satsu Ryukiri. Kakashi's right hand turned into the head of a powerful dragon. With a loud roar, Kakashi rushed forward faster than Obaido thought he could do. It's been 7 years. Kakashi had trained as hard as he could for 7 years so that when he found Naruto, he could protect him like his father had done for him. But Naruto didn't need protection, but Koyuki, his wife, did. Kakashi pierced Obaido's chest with all of his training. As the attack hit home, Obaido coughed up blood. Because of the seal, he couldn't phase through it, and he couldn't dodge it because it was moving too fast. All of a sudden, the flames began to spread over his body, consuming him in hellfire. Shit, if I don't use it, I will die. Izanagi, Obaido thought. Before everyone, he faded into a faint image and then reappeared on the roofs. Obaido teased Kakashi. Too bad you won't get a second chance. Watch out for your wife. If you don't, she'll die, and I'll make sure to see you suffer. Kakashi just smiled in his eyes and said, you won't get another chance. Before Obaido could understand what Kakashi said, a wind blade came out of his chest. Obaido spat out blood and said, what? He had just used his Izanagi, so he couldn't risk losing his other eye. And he needed some time to rest, which they wouldn't let him have. He slowly turned around and looked straight into bright ocean blue eyes and sun-kissed yellow hair. He knew it was Naruto, but he couldn't stop thinking it was Minato Namikaze. The yellow flash, he didn't realize it, but Yusuke left a Hurricane marker on him when he punched him. Naruto couldn't use the Hurricane marker that was on Minato because it was on him. It had to be his own. So he gave Yusuke one to mark Obaido. Naruto whispered, this is for my mother and father, who cared for you, treated you like family, and who you betrayed. It was the last thing he heard before Naruto got another kunai, put wind chakra into it, and cut off his head. At spring, the battle was over. As the demon brigade cleaned up, Naruto and Kakashi looked at Obaido's body one last time. They looked up into the skies, where a bit of rain started to fall. Whether it was from the rain or not, nobody could tell if they shed any tears. The deed had been done. The man who had been one man's best friend, another's possible uncle, the one who murdered so many to deny his reality, had finally fallen. Back at Akatsuki hideout, how did this happen? Raged Pain. It was one of the rare times he actually showed emotion. Akatsuki had now been reduced to just 3 of them, him, Konan, and Orochimaru, who had taken over a backup body. He wanted Sasuke but decided it was not the time to do such a thing yet. He contemplated on even taking over a Konoha ninja's body, or if he was lucky, Senju Tsunade, but it was too risky. Even Tobai, who claimed to be Madara Uchiha, was missing in action. His last message was that he was heading to Spring to correct some personal things, and had not reported back for a week. All of this leads back to one person, crackled Orochimaru. Naruto Uzumaki. Kill him, and everything should crumble in your path. Perhaps we should stop this for a bit, commented Konan. Take a step back to survey all the damage before making another hasty decision. Clearly, we didn't see this through. Pain shook his head. No, I am God. Nobody can stand up against me. I will head to the west myself and take care of this Imperial West. No demons, humans, or even family will stand in my way for peace through pain, especially not some cocky emperor. Suddenly, the boulder that blocked the entrance to their hideout exploded, dust and rocks scattering everywhere. They were forced to cover their eyes until it settled down. I'm going to have to stop you there, remarked a voice as the man stepped through the dust. Both Pain and Konan visibly jumped at who came. Jiraiya-sensei. No, stated Jiraiya darkly. The moment your organization targeted my godson, you stopped being my students. You have no right to call me sensei, just as I have no real right to be Naruto's godfather. Even so, I will do my duty to protect him. Pain chuckled. Nobody stands in the way of Pain, not even you, Jiraiya. You're outnumbered and outclassed. That would be true if he was alone, called out another voice. Soon, 6 more people joined him. Sephiroth, Urza, Itachi, Shanks, and 2 other people stepped up. One of the last 2 had black hair, blood-red eyes, and a clean black suit that made him look like the most noble person in the world. The other man's silver hair grew out all over the place and reached his legs. It was styled in a wild way. Pain growled, "Itachi," after he found out Itachi was still alive. Conan told him to move, but he didn't think Itachi would be bold enough to come. Shanks said, "Can't we talk about this, Pain? Or should I say Nagato Uzumaki?" This made both Pain and Conan jump. They had clearly underestimated how good the West was at getting information. Shanks ignored this and said, "You, who are family, must learn to let go of this. We would welcome you and your possible mate into our clan. Your family would give you comfort again." Pain said without any emotion, "I have no family. I am a god. No one is like me or has anything in common with me." Shanks closed his eyes and said, "All right, then." He turned around, walked to the nearest wall, and put his back against it. "Then you guys go crazy." Before Orochimaru could react, Jiraiya jumped at him and hit him with a bone-crushing punch, sending him flying outside. "I'll take my old friend. I don't want to fight my old students." But Orochimaru is a different story, Jiraiya said as he quickly called Ma and Pa and put them on his shoulders. Jiraiya worked even harder to finish his sage form after Naruto was sent away. He left the house to go after him. Sephiroth raised his black wing and said, "I'll go with him to make sure he's safe." He vanished in a flash, leaving only a few feathers to show that he had been there. "I'll take the woman," Urza said as she put on her battle armor. "Shall we take this outside?" Conan nodded, and then he and Urza jumped out of the cave, just in case. Itachi decided to follow them. "We'll take on Mr. Piercing, right?" the man with silver hair asked the man who looked like a nobleman. He nodded. Pain called all of his other paths to him at once. Pain told him, "You have no chance. You will die knowing what it means to go against a god." "Huh? I don't think so. Where are my manners? My name is Musaka. And Mr. Expressionless's full name is Kadizidamadi Razel. But you can just call him Razel," the man with silver hair said with a smirk. "HMPH. It doesn't matter. All names are meaningless to me. Just like all lives are worthless when you stand in front of me." The main Pain said as he raised his hand. He felt a chill go through him all of a sudden, even though his main body was far away. He could suddenly feel Razel staring at him with a slightly disgusted expression. Razel asked, "What gives you the right to kill people so easily?" "Because I'm God, and I'm the one who will make the world peaceful by using pain," said Pain as the 6 bodies surrounded the 2. "It's high," Razel said out of the blue. Pain asked, "What?" as all 6 paths began to get ready to kill. "Right, the eye level," Musaka asked. Pain said, "HMPH. My eye is different from everyone else's. It's the same as the sage of the 6 paths. Better than everyone else's. That's why I was chosen to be a god." Kneel. All 6 paths fell to the ground at once, even though Nagato was far away. He could feel his body move down to obey. Pain was having trouble and looked up at the 2 men. "That's the difference between your eye level and ours," Musaka said with a smirk as his muscles started to get bigger and fur grew on different parts of his body and limbs. He threw a bag full of blood out in front of him. When it opened, Obaido's head with his mask on came out, together with Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Sephiroth. Orochimaru was really angry. He still wasn't used to his new body. And now he had to fight to the death with one of his old teammates. Worse still, Sephiroth was just standing there and not even looking around. He couldn't take advantage of that, though, because he couldn't take his eyes off Jiraiya. When Orochimaru's pet boy Kabuto jumped in to stop the fight, they finally had a chance. Orochimaru used this chance to pull out a scroll and open a special, almost dead body that had been changed. Orochimaru quickly used Ito Tensei to decide it was time to pull out the last trick. They didn't call this body because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to control it. But now, they had no choice. A legendary figure from the world of Shinobi came out of the tomb, Madara Uchiha. When Madara turned around and saw Orochimaru fighting Jiraiya, who had already killed Kabuto, he frowned. His plan didn't look like it was working out. He looked to see Sephiroth and got a chill. As soon as he thought about it, he felt sick. Afraid. He was Uchiha fucking Madara. Shinobi who are famous. When people fought him, they were scared. He could only be matched by Hashirama. And now he was in a body that was both immortal and had an unlimited amount of chakra. Who could even compete with him? "Who are you?" demanded Madara. "Where do you come from?" "Sephiroth," said Sephiroth. "And I'm from the west, over the wall." This made Madara swear. He told Obaido, no. He warned Obaido, no. He ordered Obaido to never anger anyone from the west. First, they had to carry out their plan for the infinite Tsukuyomi. which drained the power of everyone in the east. Madara could only hope to take over the whole world after he got that power. Still, he might have had a chance with this body. Madara quickly moved his eye to the Rinnegan and called a meteorite. Hoping to end this quickly, he said, "Let's see how you do against this then." Sephiroth laughed at this. And then he raised his 9 feet long Masamune sword and cut right through the meteor from a distance. He then gave it a series of quick cuts, which broke it into even smaller pieces. Finally, he used the Faraga spell to burn it to ashes. Madara was shocked and worried. And when Sephiroth said, "My turn," her worry turned into fear. Sephiroth raised his hand, and a second meteor, almost the same size as the first, came flying out and crashed into Madara. Madara wouldn't let go of his pride and take the hit. And he knew he would live, so he took it on head-on, his eyes changing back to the Sharingan. He called up his Susanoo at full power and shot at the meteor with Yasaka Yagatama, which are Yasaka beads. He switched quickly to the Rinnegan and used the Diva Path Shinra Tensei to push the beads into the meteor even faster. He quickly took a deep breath and held up only one hand, Katen, Goka Mekiaku, following the beads. A wide flame grew out of his mouth. The beads went inside, exploded, and broke the meteorite into pieces. The fire jutsu took care of the rest after the piece fell. Madara said, "It looks like we can both call up meteors." This made Sephiroth roll his eyes. In comparison, the meteor he had called up was just a small one. He could have called up a huge one that would have destroyed the planet. But he had to think about the Empire. Madara used Susanoo in its full form and ran forward while holding a sword that Orochimaru had given him. Orochimaru and Jiraiya stopped fighting and looked at each other. Orochimaru was breathing hard, but Jiraiya only seemed to have a little bit of sweat on him. Orochimaru tried to run away, but he couldn't because Ma and Pa were on his shoulders. As soon as Orochimaru opened his eyes, Jiraiya ran at him. Orochimaru was thrown into the air by an uppercut because he couldn't move fast enough. Jiraiya quickly used his chakra to make a copy of himself as a shadow. Both of them charged a Rasengan they were holding, but when the Sage Chakra was added to both of them, the size grew so much that both of them had to move their hands back to let it grow. Jiraiya leaped into the air and dove straight at Orochimaru when he hit the ground. The clone jumped up and attacked Orochimaru from 2 directions. Senpo, Chidama Rasengan. Orochimaru couldn't move out of the way, so 2 Rasengans tore him apart while he screamed in pain. When the bright light of the explosion finally went out, the attack was over. The body of Orochimaru fell to the ground. He couldn't try to use his escape snake because it took him a while just to make the special escape chakra. Overall, it appeared that he was dead. Jiraiya slowly walked up to his body and said, "That's what you get for killing Sensei." Orochimaru's neck suddenly stretched out, and he stabbed Jiraiya in the stomach with his Kusanagi, which was sticking out of his mouth. As he coughed up blood, Ma and Pa Toad were scared. Hee, who gets the last laugh now? Idiot, don't worry, Naruto will be with you soon. Tsunade. I might keep her here a little longer so I can test her genes with Sasuke's. Who knows, maybe I'll have a little fun with her. Orochimaru teased as he watched Jiraiya slowly die. Suddenly, Jiraiya poofed. What? A shadow clone? Orochimaru yelled. All of a sudden, he felt a chill down his back. Before he could do anything, Jiraiya hit him in the neck with another Rasengan, which stopped him from moving. Orochimaru looked up weakly and saw something that scared him. Jiraiya was mad before, but now he was really angry. Orochimaru could tell from the flames in his eyes that he had no chance of living now. But that didn't stop him from asking. Jiraiya made a clone and another Rasengan and said, "Enough." Pa spat some oil into the Rasengan, and Ma put more nature chakra into it. Soon, another Chidama Rasengan formed, but inside it, oil was swirling. This time, Jiraiya used his other hand to make a small flame. He then threw the flame into the Rasengan. It caught on fire soon after. It's not the same as adding elements from nature, but it works, Jiraiya said. Now, die, Senpo. Moru Chidama Rasengan. Jiraiya's attack hit Orochimaru right in the head. When the attack was over, his head had been burned to ashes. Still, Jiraiya burned the rest of Orochimaru's body to make sure he was dead. Jiraiya looked up at the sky as the last flames went out. "Goodbye, old friend," said Jiraiya. Back to Nagato in 6 paths versus Musaka and Razel. Nagato was already on his main path, which was the body of Yahiko. Every other body had been killed by Musaka, who beat them until they couldn't move, or by Razel's strange blood attacks. Shinra Tensei didn't stop them from coming in, so they did. They were just too strong and fast. Musaka asked Asura Path, as he crushed his head with his hand, "Do you still think you're a god?" Pain growled and used his strongest move, Chibaku Tensei. Right away, Musaka smiled as a gravity ball appeared out of nowhere above them. as his energy level rose. He yelled, "This is more like it." Razel did the same thing, raising his hand. Soon, a fierce wolf formed above him, while a blood phoenix formed above Razel. Both attacks were fired at the gravity ball, destroying it right away. Pain yelled, "Impossible," because he had just used up all of his chakra. Muzaka won the fight by putting his hand right through Pain's chest and into his heart. Soon, even Pain was gone. There was no one else, and when Razel looked into Pain's mind, she already knew where he was. Urza versus Conan. Conan was losing badly. Urza kept calling up too many swords, and each one had its own special power. She felt like Nagato's puppets had all fallen at once. "Nagato," she yelled as she ran away from the battle to join him. Urza, however, stopped her again. Conan yelled, "Get out of my way," as she used all of her chakra for one last attack. Urza was surrounded by a swirl of papers. Most of them were tags that exploded. Soon, they were all going to go off. But then, Nakagami armor. The paper was cut into pieces all of a sudden, without even going off. Conan stared in shock when he saw Urza in another strange piece of armor that left her chest bare. But Urza attacked before she could do anything. Nakagami Starlight. The blow hit Conan right where it should have, and she fell to the ground, bleeding heavily. Urza said, "It's too bad, because you don't seem like the bad type at all." Itachi said, "She only stuck with Nagato to stay alive and because she was Nagato's only friend left, even if it meant ruining her own sense of right and wrong." He had no choice but to cry. Nagato's plan was doomed to fail, and she couldn't even help her last friend, her last link to Yahiko. Even though all of Nagato's plans broke her heart, she stayed with him for the sake of their bond. Itachi went over to her as she lay on the floor slowly dying. Itachi told him, "Look into my eyes." Since she didn't have a choice, she looked at Itachi to watch the Mangekyo sharing in form. Tsukuyomi. She was in bed when she woke up to the sun. She blinked when she felt something move near her. She gasped when she saw Yahiko without all of his piercings. Slowly, his eyes opened, revealing brown eyes she hadn't seen before. Yahiko asked, "What's up, honey?" Conan couldn't stop crying, so she gave Yahiko a hug. Even if they were both naked, it didn't matter. Even if this was all a dream, it didn't matter. She only cared about seeing Yahiko one more time. Even though time seemed to pass quickly, Conan didn't care. As they lived their lives, she saw peace. Yahiko as her husband, and Nagato as their best friend. It was more than she could have hoped for. She got older with Yahiko and Nagato, met Jiraiya, and died holding her loved ones in her arms. Conan died with a smile on her face and blurry eyes. Urza worried about Itachi's health and looked over at him, but he shook it off and said he was fine. This illusion took a lot more chakra, but it was worth it. Other than Kasame, he respected Conan the most out of the Akatsuki. Before taking out a flower he had hidden, he made her close her eyes. He put it on her chest as she began to break up into pieces of paper. Soon, a wind picked her up and carried her away, scattering her ashes wherever it went. Razel, Shanks, and Muzaka found where Nagato was hiding. He coughed up blood because he had used so much chakra. Nagato moaned, "Nu, I'm God. You can't stop me from doing what I'm meant to do." Razel moved forward a few steps and used his finger to wipe some blood off Nagato's face. "No one has the right to end a life when they think it's best," Razel said. Nagato said, "I am a god, so I have the right." "No, your sin," Razel said as his red eyes lit up in a scary way. All of a sudden, the blood on his finger started to spurt out and seemed to grow. It made a tornado of blood around Nagato. Nagato was scared and felt it all over his body. "Shall be buried by your blood," Razel said to end the sentence. As the blood tornado came closer to Nagato, it shot up into the air. Soon, it went away, and nothing of Nagato Uzumaki was left. Shanks walked toward where Nagato had been. He pulled out his sword and got on his knees to pray. Even though Nagato didn't believe in the Uzumaki religion, he was still a member of the family and deserved one last prayer. Back at Madara versus Sephiroth, Madara was taking in a lot of air. It didn't help, though, because Sephiroth kept kicking him like a child. Madara's sharing and could barely read Sephiroth's moves, and even if it couldn't help him avoid all of them. Sephiroth's reach was ridiculously far, and Susanoo was no match for his sword. Even when I switched to the Rinnegan, it didn't help. All of a sudden, Sephiroth vanished again in a flurry of feathers. As Madara tried to figure out where he was, he heard a voice coming from above. "This is over." When Madara looked up, Sephiroth was floating in the air and his free hand was making a small halo. Then, the words that came next sealed his fate. "Heartless Angel Sin Harvest." Sephiroth's hand crushed the halo. All of a sudden, There was a halo above Madara's head. Before he knew it, he was in pain he couldn't describe. His chakra levels were also gone, leaving him with nothing, even though Ito Tensei's chakra seems to be limitless. "This is better." "What did you do?" shouted Madara as he touched down. Sephiroth said nothing. Then, in an instant, he seemed to appear behind Madara. When Madara saw that he was being cut up, he turned around and tried to attack him. Sephiroth didn't magically move. He had come at him quickly and cut him 8 times. Sephiroth dropped a tag on Ito Tensei as he tried to put himself back together. Madara was thrown back to the land of the dead. "The pure world." All of a sudden, Sephiroth said, "This seal is from the Shinigami Squadron, and it has the power to send people back who don't belong here." Madara screamed and fought, but the Shinigami's call was too strong. Soon, he was sent back to his world and could no longer come back. They all came back to the cave soon after. Jiraiya looked up to the sky and said, "It's over." "What about Sasuke, Uchiha, and Oto?" Shanks said. "Naruto has decided that killing Sasuke isn't worth it. Let Oto and Konoha fight in their little war, as long as they don't try to invade the West or any of our current allies. We have no problem with them," Urza reminded him. "Sasuke will probably still do something stupid." Shanks grinned and said, "That's when we strike. We don't want to look like the bad guys." Itachi laughed before making a bet. 1 week says he'll try to kill someone for the West. 3 weeks before he actually does something to piss off the West. Muzaka smiled and asked, "You don't think your brother has more patience or strength than that?" Itachi replied, "It's my ex-brother, and I'm sure that's the most patience and strength he has." This made Muzaka laugh out loud. There was a party going on in Konoha. Akatsuki had been defeated, and Iwa had been killed. All that was left was Oto, who was still getting better. Of course, they forgot that it was the West that had destroyed their enemies against their will. Most people were having a party and saying that their village was the one chosen to be in charge. The West wasn't important to them. Most of Tsunade's shinobi forces were humiliated that they couldn't do anything because of Danzo. Random accidents slowed down the movement of shinobi forces a lot. When they finally got their troops together, the battle in Suna was already over. Still, they didn't hear that it was done, so when they brought half of their army to Suna, Suna asked if they were coming to invade. They left Suna and ran back to Konoha when they realized how late it was. It seems that the West sent Suna things to help them get back on their feet. No backstabbing moves were even made to rub it in even more. A building for the Western Consult had already been built in Suna, which showed how close they were. Konoha didn't bring back any war spoils. Soon, though, Tsunade called a meeting that everyone had to attend. The Shinobi Council came to the meeting right on time. On the other hand, the Civilian Council was very late. In fact, it took Anbu units to find them and drag them, even though they were drunk, to the meeting. A Civilian Council member asked, with drool coming out of his mouth, "What is it, Tsunade?" The lack of manners made many shinobi shake their heads in disgust. Tsunade, however, was grinning inside. She would soon be able to leave the cursed village. Her first plan was to run as fast as she could to the land of spring. We could wait to get drunk, finally getting back together with Jiraiya and all her other loved ones. She already had everything packed up and was ready to go at any time. "Hold on," said Tsunade. "It looks like Danzo and one more important guest are still on their way." Danzo soon came and took a seat. When Tsunade saw this, she knew it was time. "Council members, I've called you all together to tell you something very important," Tsunade said loudly, making some of the civilian members wince. "What is it, Hokage-sama?" Hayashi asked with a grin on his face. He knew what was going to happen and had packed his things in secret. When it was time, he went back to his family in a straight line. He was excited to play with his grandchildren, who were coming to visit. He would let any branch members and a few main members who didn't have a log up their asses come. "Thanks to the West, who helped us without meaning to," Tsunade said. She was cut off by a member of the council who said, "PSHH, it was meant to be that they would help us. That so-called emperor should be happy to serve us. But a simple task is not enough to make up for his mistake. He should be chained up and brought to us. And everything he owns should be given to Konoha so that we can get back to the top. Uchiha-sama would definitely come back if we made him the emperor and gave him a whore to be his consort." The elders and the other civilian members of the group quickly agreed, except for the Kurama clan. The other shinobi on the council looked at them with disgust. Even the head of the Inuzaku family, Tsume, was disgusted by this behavior. "Silence. I won't let Naruto be talked to that way while the traitorous Uchiha is praised," Tsunade yelled. "Then I think we should get a new Hokage. I nominate Sasuke Uchiha-sama. Kami knows that the little demon wanted the job. What better way to show how useless it is than to give it to someone who really deserves it? Asano Haruna screamed. Asuma growled as he slowly pulled out his trench knives and said, "That sounds like treason." HMPH, another council member who was not a shinobi said. "This is why you shinobi shouldn't be on the council. You only think about violence and not politics. The civilian council is always looking out for what's best for the people." Inoichi was getting angry and yelled, "You mean your best interest? What makes Konoha great is that we care about it," shouted another civilian member. The room was full of people, and only a loud bang got their attention. But Tsunade did not hit the desk to make this noise. Instead, the door's opening was what made this bang. "Who dares to interrupt this meeting?" Danzo yelled as he raised his hand, ready to have his ninjas get rid of the person who was in the way. "I do," the fire daimyo replied. He gave Danzo a hard look, which made Danzo sag a little and look down. He quickly put his hand down to tell his shinobis not to move. The flames daimyo stared at each member, and they all fell apart under his angry gaze. He finally stopped when he got to Tsunade and gave her a nod. "Go ahead and say what you were going to say." "Lady Tsunade." "Thank you, daimyo-sama," said Tsunade. "I came here to tell you that we are no longer under martial law, and that the war with Odo has stopped because Orochimaru and Akatsuki have died. We are now at peace, so I'm stepping down." At this, people started shouting and begging her not to quit, while others started putting forward other people. When the fire daimyo coughed once, everyone had to be quiet. "So, that's that. Any suggestions for Hokage? And if I hear someone saying something stupid as the Uchiha, I'll have my guards cut off their head." The fire daimyo was told. There were ideas, but none of them worked. Soon, the meeting ended so that everyone could think about who they wanted overnight. The fire daimyo let this happen and told his guards that he would stay to hear what they decided. As everyone was leaving, Tsunade gave Hayashi and Asuma a note that said they should meet at the Senju compound. They could bring other clan heads with them. The elders and the civilian council have already decided what to do. They would vote for Danzo, and the Shinobi Kurama clan was also ready to vote for Danzo in exchange for good choices. Soon, it was night, and all of the Shinobi clan heads except for the heads of the Kurama and Yuzaku clans were in the Senju compound. Tsun was very controversial because she voted for Naruto to be sent away. Instead, Hana came and told Tsunade that she strongly disagreed with what her mother had chosen. Everyone was surprised to see that Tsunade had already packed and was ready to go. She told them that after this last thing, she had lost all faith in Konoha and was ready to leave. The other leaders of her clan were saddened by her decision, but they respected it. When she told them that Naruto would let them stay somewhere else temporarily if they wanted to leave Konoha, he let them. Some of them took that chance, especially after their children told them about the amazing things in the West. They went back home quickly. Soon, in the morning, Shinobi messengers came in to tell them that there was an urgent meeting to be held. The new Hokage had already been chosen. "So, it starts," Tsunade said with a grim face as she walked toward the council meeting. The fire daimyo was the only one who didn't show up, which was strange. Even so, the civilian council and Danzo went ahead with their attack. "I was put forward as a candidate for Hokage last night, and I won with the most votes. We don't want to keep the fire daimyo from getting a good night's sleep, so we will keep this meeting going. As my first order, I am taking away all shinobi's freedom to travel until they have all sworn to be loyal to Konoha and been re-educated. That includes the rights you have as a Sannin," Tsunade declared Danzo. He laughed at her because he thought she had found them. Tsunade smiled back at him and then told him to go away. Danzo was about to have his root Anbu attack her and catch her for disobeying the council, which made him angry. With her DNA, they might be able to bring the Mokudan back to life. The door was suddenly blown open again. Danzo was ready for Himura and Koharu to talk the fire daimyo into agreeing that this was a good idea. Even Kato Matasakami was ready to put him to sleep, but he wasn't ready for the sudden heavy feeling that came over this council room. Everyone just fell into their seats, unable to fight what they were feeling. Clack, click, click, click. Two men with red hair walked into the room. Clack, click, click, click. Everyone could see who they were because they stood in the middle of the room. Uzumaki Kenshin and Uzumaki Shanks. Fear made Danzo start to sweat. He did not want to meet either one of them. Well, we, the Uzumaki clan, helped build this village. The same village that left us when they came to attack our village. The same village that made fun of a member of the Uzumaki family. Shanks growled in a dangerous way. Is this the same village that tried to kill him, his wife, and his son a few days ago? Asked Kenshin. What do you mean? The fire daimyo asked as he walked into the room. Unfazed by the heavy air, Shanks was leaving him out on purpose. Kenshin pulled out a scroll and unrolled it in the middle of the room. When the smoke cleared, 4 root shinobi and Sai were lying there as clear as day. 3 of them were already dead. 1 was barely alive, and Sai was the only one who wasn't hurt. Sai asked Choza. Sai jerked back right away and curled up while yelling, "Don't force me to return. I don't want to. I'm scared." Danzo was completely shocked. Shinobi were taught not to show any feelings. One of his best works was Sai, and now he was in a terrible state. Soon, Kenshin got sick of him freaking out. So he hit him in the back of the head, knocking him out. "Let us explain," Shanks said. Flashback. 2 days had passed since Akatsuki was defeated. Danzo sent out his root shinobi with the plan to kill the Emperor. If the West was in chaos, it wouldn't be a threat to Konoha, and Danzo could easily sweep through it and take all of its resources for his village. Konoha would be the capital of this whole continent. He sent 4 of his best shinobi with Sai, who had been there before. They rode a ship from the land of the waves all the way to the west along a trade route. It wasn't until recently that Konoha found out that the land of the waves could trade with the west, one that they had tried to use before but couldn't because the fire daimyo told them not to. They finally got to the west, where they pretended to be traders, to make their disguises even better. They were carrying weapons they had stolen from the land of Tetsu and other valuable items to sell. After they got into the city, they waited until night to sneak into the palace. They knew he was away on personal business, so they waited until he was gone to attack. As they walked through the palace, they took note of anything valuable that Danzo-sama might find useful. Slurp. When they turned around to see where the voice was coming from, they saw Osbin looking at them while holding a mug in one hand and a cane in the other. "Well, I don't think you're lost. I know Sai has been here because he and his peers have been told not to go into the Emperor's home unless they are invited. And yet, here you are." Osbin said so. The leader of the group of shinobi asked, "Who is this?" "Sai. Simple person. He is in charge of all civilian matters," Sai answered. "Ah, so this person is helpful to the West. If you tell us where the demon brat is, we'll make sure that your time in Danzo T and Isama's unit is more bearable," the leader was asked. Osbin just sipped from his mug to answer. When the leader lost his cool, he told 3 of them to kill Osbin. They ran toward him, eager to do what he said. They didn't want to use jutsu because it could lead people to where they were. Right now, it was important to be quiet. They thought it would be easy to get Osbin. They were so wrong. Before they knew what was going on, they were all thrown against the wall. The only difference was that Osbin was now using his walking stick as a weapon instead of as a walking stick. When Sai looked closely, he saw that each person who had been knocked out had a mark the same size as the cane in different places. Osbin said, "It's true that I'm in charge of civilian matters, but that doesn't mean I don't know how to fight. Even more so if it's just people who tend to think less of others." As the leader went through the hand signals, he growled. He no longer cared about being hidden, since it was clear that his ability to be quiet had been lost. Katen, Goryu Nagar. Osbin was hit by a stream of fire that looked like a dragon, but Osbin just slammed his stick down, and the attack was stopped by a clear barrier. Even though fire was coming at Osbin, it didn't stop him. He kept walking forward. Even though it was clear that the barrier was moving toward the user, the leader tried to give it more chakra, but Osbin's shield was strong. Soon, Osbin was close enough to the leader that he could poke him in the throat with his cane. The leader couldn't breathe, so he stopped his jutsu and tried to get some air. Sai tried to move, but all of a sudden, a bunch of hidden weapons pinned him down. When he looked up, he saw a woman with short hair hanging upside down. She looked at him and smiled. He was scared by this grin. Osbin sighed as he put the leader out of his mind. "Yuffie, you've already got dummies to use as targets. You don't have to use a real person to test your skills." 3 shinobi who had been thrown into a wall finally woke up and tried to escape, but Maru and Hanabi were there and stopped them. As the 3 tried to attack, they yelled, "Die, traitors!" But once again, they are way too harsh on someone. Hanabi and Maru worked together while they were being trained by their idols, senseis. During the war, they got nicknames for each other. Hanabi wore white most of the time, and Maru wore black. Both outfits had a little bit of the other color on the right shoulder. People called them yin and yang, 2 parts of a whole that would kill anyone who got in their way. And these idiots were about to find out why they were called that. Soon, it was clear that Sai was the only one who was still awake. "I won't say anything," said Sai. Osbin snapped his fingers and said, "You won't have a choice." Soon, the shadows came to life and grabbed Sai, pulling him into the dark. As Sai fought, he swore he saw a lot of red eyes in the shadows. Osbin talked to the shadows as he was being pulled into them. "We need him to be alive, Alucard. If not, you can do what you want." Flashback ends. So, we put them in jail for trying to take over the West. If Konoha had done something like this, The West would have gone to war with it. Shanks was calm as he spoke to the fire daimyo. HMPH. Then let's go to war, yelled a civilian counselor. We are the better village. We humans are the best. Your small empire will be destroyed by Konoha's will. At this point, many people were looking at the criminal as if he were stupid. The fire daimyo sighed when he saw this mess. Sarutobi Hiruzen may have been a good Hokage, but he let too much corruption grow. So Tsunade had a lot on her plate. He told his samurai to cut off the member's head so that his genes wouldn't mix with the rest. Apologies. Uzumaki Shanks, I don't want my money to be used to fight a war that Konoha can't win. I promise that I will have my people find out what's going on, Henshin said. That's a good apology, Daimyo-sama, but I'm afraid we have more to talk about. The Flames daimyo gave a tired nod and sat down. Shanks again took the floor. So, I heard that Danzo Shimura is the new Hokage. Is that true? Even though the fire daimyo wasn't in favor of it, everyone in the town gasped at this. They knew that the fire daimyo had to agree with this choice for this person to be Hokage. But they didn't care about that. Shanks didn't care and kept going. And it looks like his first move was to take away all the rights of shinobi until they swore to be loyal to him. And because of this, Tsunade couldn't go back to her family. Hamura yelled, she is a senju. She is the last of her people. You forget that her grandmother is also in Uzumaki. Shanks said in a cold voice. Still, she can't leave, said Koharu. Her family was one of the first people to live in Konoha. So she can't go. She needs to bring people back to it someday. And the Senju would be angry with what this village has become now. Kenshin said with a snarl. It's full of people who cheat, lie, and keep family away, he said. You have already lied and kept my nephew from me, which was your job and not yours to do. And now, right in front of me, you want to stop my family from coming home. That's enough, said the fire daimyo. I'll let Danzo become Hokage. But anyone in the village can leave if they don't feel safe with Danzo in charge. Shinobi and regular people will be able to leave without getting in trouble for the next 72 hours. No one, not even seals, are allowed to stop them from leaving. Asano yelled. That could destroy Konoha. If you all say Danzo is such a good leader, you shouldn't have anything to worry about, said the fire daimyo. I have my own guards and some Uzumaki clan members patrolling. For now, you should think of the Uzumaki as my personal guards. And any attack on them is the same as an attack on me. I fully back them if they want to defend themselves. After he said that, he and his guards and Uzumakis left right away. When Danzo took a quick look at the Shinobi Council, he didn't like what he saw. Many of them were thinking about leaving for good. He decided that he needed to give an inspiring speech and make full use of Kato Mataskami. As he began to gather chakra, he felt it cut off all of a sudden. When he turned around, he saw Tsunade grinning and tapping on a seal with her hand. When he saw that it was an Uzumaki sealing tag, he became very angry. He couldn't use his Kato Mataskami anymore. Just like Koharu and Hamura, he would have to rely on his smooth talk. Clan leaders, members of the public, I beseech you, we need to stand together against the coming darkness. The darkness that Naruto Uzumaki is known to be. If we don't work together, we will fall. But when we work together, we are strong and can stop the demon. We can show the world what the will of fire is and how it really burns in all of us. This demon feeds on bad things and people who are helpless. We do not. Instead, we help people in need by being fair, kind, and honest. I won't listen to your stupid talk. Tsunade cut her off. When Danzo gave his speech, she laughed at him. Victimize the weak. That was always what Danzo did. Now he was acting like a liar. She threw Danzo her headband from Konoha, which she had brought with her. I'm out. I have relatives I didn't know about who are still alive, but I'm not missing out on them. Everything is coming with me. Konoha will not take away my family or my past. People stared at her as she left, then laughed and called her a drunk old hag. Now that the traitor is gone, maybe we can all work together. Koharu began. She stopped when Tsunade was joined by another Hyatt. Asuma owned it. I'm out. I'm not going to put my family in danger here. Too many important people from the Sarutobi clan have died. I'm going. Those in the Sarutobi clan who want to stay can. But I'm leaving. He left by giving Danzo the finger, before putting it in the pile. Shikaku, Inoichi, and Choza looked at each other. Asano yelled, you can't do this. Plank, Hayashi put it in and walked away proudly, ready to get all of his things ready to go. Inuzaku Tsume was in a bad way. She cared most about the pack and being loyal, but she knew she couldn't trust Danzo. She was also not sure if she could trust the West. At the end of the day, their instincts told them that Naruto was the fox. When Shibai put her hand on her shoulder, that was the last straw. Do you really think that after what your pack has done, They will be able to live in Konoha. You have shown your pack how important family is. Still, we can see now that the elders and people in power were willing to split up families to get what they wanted. Pick what you think is right. Can you really say that Naruto is the demon? Or do you just not know enough about Fuinjutsu to do the right thing? Even though Shibai didn't talk much, he said more than Tsume had ever heard him say. He left after throwing his hat on the pile. When it came down to the last choice, Tsume threw hers in. It was a big move. Shinobi from different departments left when they heard that Danzo was going to be in charge. Ibiki, Anko, and a few other important people in the T&I department left quickly, as did Ibiki. Everything that could be taken was. There are no more sealing scrolls. And only after the Uzumaki gave a few extras did some valuable things leave the clan. Tsunade took everything from the Senju compound, including the 4 Hokage's ashes. She was stopped because it was against the law and rude, but she got her way by punching them in the face. The first 2 Hokages were Senju. The third was her teacher and also Asuma's request. And the fourth was in Uzumaki by marriage. The Akimichi, Yamanaka, and Nara clans moved with everything they owned. They thought it would be best to stick together and maybe try their luck in the west. The other lands didn't sound very good. And when Choji told his father that the food was best in the west, it was easy to get the head of the Akimichi clan to decide. The Aburame instead chose to go towards spring. With the new weather, the bugs might do better, and they might even come up with bugs that can handle the cold. They could also promise to keep Koyuki's house clean and free of bugs. The fact that spring had a strong alliance with the west also helped them make their decision. Also, no one knew, but all of them were perverts. People couldn't tell if they were staring or admiring someone's body if they wore sunglasses all the time. If someone was wearing a high collar, no one could tell if they were bleeding from the nose if they saw something wrong. Along with the fact that they were thought to be noble, it was the perfect disguise. Knowing a certain movie star did affect that choice. The Sarutobi family broke up. Some of the others wanted to go to Sand, but Asuma took his family to the west. In the end, most of the people went to the west, while a few went to the country of Sand. The Hyuga clan and the Inuzaku clan were both in a mess. They didn't agree with each other at all. Hayashi didn't listen to the wisdom of the older people when he said that Heiki would take over as head of the clan. Heiki's first order was that no one could leave unless they were killed. Because of this, Hisoka had to use his chakra chains. It wasn't like Kushina, which was made of chains of sticky gum. He pushed Heiki against the wall and put paper on the foreheads of every branch member, who had no idea what was going on. Some people from the main branch tried to help, but Urza's swords, which were floating around, stopped them. With a quick pull, the chains that were stuck on the papers came off, making a loud ripping sound. The branch members winced in pain, but as soon as they realized they were free, they cried tears of joy. Of course, the people who were freed wanted to go to the west. Most of the main branch members left Konoha because they said they didn't need the weaker branch members. Hayashi was glad to leave. The Inuzaku clan broke up into 3 groups. Kiba was trying to say that he was an alpha and that they should stay in Konoha. No need to worry about being dead last. Hana was already planning to go to the west, and she had persuaded a few other members to go with her. She said that there were real alpha mates in the west, unlike Kiba, who was just bragging. Tsume was torn, but he chose to go to spring in the end. 1/10 of the clan went to the west, 3/10 stayed, and the other 6/10 went for spring. Most of the shinobi who were not part of a clan went their own way. 1/5 went to the west, and the other half went wherever the wind took them. Uruka, who was dating Anko behind his friend's back, was glad that Anko was coming to the west with him. Not everyone liked Danzo as a choice. Soon, it would be time to leave. Everyone who wanted to come to Sand in spring was welcome. Irami quickly uprooted the spies that Danzo tried to sneak in. People who were going somewhere else but not to the west decided to stay and see how the people going to the west did. All that was left was for the transportation to arrive from the west. Most people had heard about the airships, but they laughed it off, thinking that the people who told them were making it up or that their memories were all mixed up. Soon, though, you could hear the sound of blades spinning in the sky. When the high wind came down to the ground, everyone looked up and their jaws dropped. When the door opened, Naruto was the first thing everyone saw. He was no longer wearing his emperor clothes. Instead, he was wearing his favorite orange shirt that he always wore. But now he had a white cape with flames at the bottom. It was both a gift and a joke from Jiraiya and Kakashi. No one could now say that Naruto did not look like Minato. It's the little devil. He's breaking the law. He was kicked out. We are allowed to kill him. Someone kill, Asano yelled. But Uruka knocked him out because he was getting on his nerves. Tsunade walked over to Naruto and hugged him. Naruto said in a whisper, Let's go home, boss-san. Tsunade cried and gave a nod. Jiraiya came out of the ship with his arms wide open. Tsunade didn't wait and jumped on him right away. I got my sensei back. My Heim, Jiraiya said in a whisper. You weren't forced to. I'd rather you have a better chance of living with me than with someone else, Tsunade replied with a whisper. Despite that, she enjoyed his warmth. Soon, everyone who was going to the west got on board. Soon, there were only 2 people left. Uzumaki, Shanks, and Kenshin looked in the direction of Konoha. They focused on Danzo, Himura, and Koharu. They could feel the sharp look they were giving them. Let me be clear. Kenshin snarled. If you do something stupid like this again, you won't be able to hide. Before you ask, yes, that is a threat. Also, it's a promise. Kenshin quickly cut open the bandages around Danzo's eye with his sword, showing everyone that his Sharingan had been stolen. He put his left hand on it to hide it, but it was too late. Everyone had seen it. Our network also told us that you stole some valuable parts of your body. We in the West won't do anything, but if you try anything, you had better be ready to die. The Uzumakis will kill you no matter how good your blood is. Kenshin and Shanks laughed and turned around to leave.
I will continue the story in next part, so turn on the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Till then, we weeb offline.